Hi there. Thank you so much for listening to Grounded in Maine today. My name is Amy. My guest today is Wasseem Emam. He is the founder and the founder of Ethical Seafood Research, based out of the University of Madrid. Am I correct, Wasseem?
So I do live in Spain and I have an affiliation with Madrid, but Ethical Seafood Research is an
Oh,
independent. It's a
it's separate
non-profit.
from. Sorry.
Non-profit. Yeah,
Sorry.
no worries, no worries.
But thank you so much for being here, Wasim. I'm really looking forward to this because like we were saying before we hit record, like this is not something that I really know a lot about. So I'm grateful for that. And so ethical seafood research, can you tell us a little bit about that? And then I also want to know like why you decided to do this, because we were just also talking about the fact that you grew up in Canada, like our friend Andrew, who was obsessed with the ocean, even though he had never even seen the ocean, just from watching Jacques Cousteau.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, good morning and thank you for having me. And it's always nice to chat about the work we do and why we do it and so on. So, Ethical Seafood Research is a small nonprofit. We are technically UK based and registered, but we do have a presence in Spain where I am. We have our focus is really in the field. So we have teams in Egypt, where I'm from originally, and in Kenya. We was one of the first places we started. So and Tanzania as well. So we have people there who are on the ground working with our main stakeholders, which are both the fish and the people who you know raise the fish usually. So we say aquatic animals, but fish is a lot of what we do. Our mission is to reduce the suffering. Well, you can say reduce suffering or improve welfare, depending who I'm talking to. But really, we're trying to reduce the suffering of the aquatic animals that are caught up in the food system. The number and the scale is huge. There's billions that are farmed every year, and it's a very invisible issue because fish don't really show us when they're suffering or
Yeah.
struggling. So
Well,
that's
we don't
and
know
that,
that much
that
about them.
yeah, exactly. Which kind of is a nice segue into your other question about like why did I get into this? Andrew and I did talk a bit about this during my undergraduate degree in Toronto, in Canada. Is another one of my identities, as you alluded to. So I did one work placement with the Ministry of Environment in Ontario. I was working with what they call the Sport Fish Contaminant Monitoring Unit. I was assisting like a senior scientist in going out to take samples of fish. We were responsible for knowing how many, like the level of contaminants in fish from taken from different areas, so that it could inform the publication of a guide for children, women, or pregnant women and children, and older people who have to be careful, like with contaminants like mercuries and so on. So basically, like those who are catching wild fish, I should sorry, like angling. So if you're catching wild fish, you shouldn't eat more than I don't know this many of this species from this area per week. That was like the kind of target that they put in the guide. But as part of that process, yeah, so we going out, like kind of catching fish from different places, and I grew up in the Middle East mostly before moving to the UK and Canada for education, and we're like not really outdoorsy people. Like in your spare time, you don't go outdoors naturally. The outdoors is just something that's there, So when I moved to Canada, everyone has like either fishing or skiing or hunting, or like everyone has cottages, and it's like a whole like outdoorsy kind of culture. First of all, that was interesting to me, but then like being in nature and close to nature, and especially on the water with working with aquatic animals, was a whole new experience for me. And there's all this cool gear and kit, and like you wear waders for this place, you use this kind of net for this environment. You had like electro fishing boats, all this like really cool kit that made me feel like some kind of superhero a bit, like
Right?
so I really liked all of that part of it. But then there was one day that stuck with me in particular. We had like a huge, what they call a seine net. We had this huge net, me and my boss, and it was like a two-man thing where you kind of corral the fish into one part of the coastline or shoreline or whatever. And we're trying to catch juvenile fish, but if you go to the right areas and if you know what you're doing, you can catch hundreds, thousands easily. And we only needed like 50, maybe even 30, if I remember correctly. And we had so many in there. And I was like, so I remember he was focused on like taking his time to pick like the right one that would meet the, and I was like, no, no,
You're
these
like,
fish are so,
meanwhile,
yeah, exactly. So I
yeah,
was just there putting all these other ones back, and he
yeah,
even like he turned around and said to me like, "What are you doing? Like, focus on the job, you know?" And I couldn't because I was thinking about
oh yeah,
I didn't know the science or anything, but it just felt to me like it's not normal for these fish to be out, and especially that we're not taking them to camp. Like if we don't need them, that's like
right.
unnecessary
Let
suffering.
them go.
So yeah, exactly. And anyway, like he kind of told me later, like if you're gonna be this useless, I don't think I can take you out to the field. I remember thinking, well, it doesn't sit right with me that anyway. And that's
Yeah,
how I started thinking
totally.
more about exactly. So that's how I started thinking more about like, fish suffering, fish pain, and the invisible. You might go to these like rivers or lakes with your family or friends or whatever, and you never really think about what's going on below. You just think, oh, it's so beautiful and tranquil. And that's a habitat for so many animals.
Right.
And aquatic animals are, apart from mammals like marine mammals like dolphins and whales and stuff, are we don't really relate to fish at all. Um, so
Right.
that's what got me into it from a personal perspective, and of course, then that affected like my choice of studies and my choice of like research topics and so on. Like the culmination, like basically, just so I don't go on too long about that, but
That's actually fascinating to me. I appreciate that a lot.
okay, fair enough. Yeah. So I was just gonna say that like somehow years later, I found myself working in the aquaculture sector, and we can talk a bit more about what that even means. And my supervisor, my PhD supervisor, said to me like, "Why do you like look at the fish at the welfare of the fish?" And I had no idea what animal welfare really meant. And then I
Right.
like started diving into that, and I realized there was a whole thing. It used to be something that vets would talk about, or
Mm-hmm.
or something that like in the companion animals like pets, we talked about animal welfare. We would talk
Of
about that in
course.
in a zoo setting as well, but not in a farm setting and not in a farmed fish setting. So
Right.
I got into that, and I realized I was now part of this like a whole other world, which was very interesting, and it fit in very well with the kind of things I studied. So I never liked being in the industry because I was more conservation oriented, and animal welfare felt like a kind of happy medium. So that's my story that I usually tell people of like how
Okay.
I give a
Doing.
short version of it though. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were doing research, but you were struggling with the lack of animal welfare, and so you were more concerned in about the conservation part, not so much the research. But so you sort of carved your own sort of your own
Niche.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I realized maybe I shortcutted too much out of that story. Like sometimes I feel like I'm just spending too long.
Go for it, Wasim.
But so my degree was in Toronto was environmental science with international development, and I kind of just happened to find this aquatic ecology stuff I liked. So then for my master's, I did focus more on that, and I chose for my research topic to do something with fish. And I did another work placement. That's how like Andrew and I worked for the same person. It was when I went back to Ontario. So I kept like specializing more and more in fish, like through studies and through work experiences. And then I knew I wanted to kind of stick with fish, but I was like, what you study is more like how like fish biology, fish physiology, the science of the fish. But
Mm-hmm.
when you actually graduate and you're trying to find a job with fish oriented knowledge, you're either going to be helping the industry catch fish better, you're going to be helping industry farm fish better. You might work for the government, like, like Andrew and I did, where you're researching, but even that research is fish are treated as a resource. Aquatic animals, let's say, are treated
Mm-hmm.
as a resource in most countries around the world. They're not like, we don't talk about like, I don't know, wild land animals as a resource. Like that's nature and wildlife. But for some reason,
Right.
you see what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You don't
actually,
think
in
of them as a
Arab,
being. You think of them as a like a subject.
and something we could exploit for our own economic gain, right? So like they talk
Right.
about fish stocks. I don't have a view on whether it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's the reality of the world.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just digress for a second. So even in Arabic, the word that we use for fisheries is fish wealth. Like that's the wealth that the country that has those fish stocks has. Um, and the word resources, many countries calls it fisheries resources. It's not seen as like they're there to be exploited, not there to
Yeah.
inherently have their own value. And that's something that I've always found
Wow.
interesting. So I guess I was just saying that welfare was a way to find a job within industry, and like somehow you're tied into industry, but you're still doing something that aligns with your values. So I'm making it less bad for the fish somehow, you know? Yeah. Don't know if that makes sense.
Wow. No, thank you for clarifying that. That's actually that's really beautiful. I mean, really, I think that we so many of us go through life and we're just like everything is for us, everything is for us, and we're not thinking about, and I mean, it's happening now even with humans, you know. Some are better than others and some don't count and whatever. Like the fish are living beings and we need to treat them as such. And I think that I'm so glad that you are talking about this because, and it's not that I thought of them as not beings, but like I didn't really think about fish. I don't really eat a lot of
Yeah.
fish, and so many of us don't think about that. And so I'm so glad that you are thinking about that. And I'm that story where you were saying that you were useless to to your boss is really interesting, and it just makes me think like I mean how many people are in that field and not considering their well-being. And thank goodness you're there doing that. I mean, I have a very vivid visual in my mind of like you like throwing these fish back, like we're not taking you, you're fine, go back, you know,
It was
and live
exactly
your
like that.
life. And then your boss was like, what are you doing? Like we have a job to do.
Exactly. And actually,
Yeah.
if you extrapolate from that, so I was just saying that if you look like, you know, people, so I'm part of like a big animal advocacy movement, and people like think a lot about how we can free animals from the conditions that they're kept in and so on. And we talk about slaughterhouses a lot, like the effect of working in a slaughterhouse on the animal, on the humans, not the animals. So I was just thinking, as you were saying that, or even the farmers who work with the animals, even though they're kept in bad conditions, sometimes I guess they become numb to it.
Right.
So I was thinking it was like my boss, not the same, but like a similar sort of like just get on with the
Yeah.
job, not don't
Yeah.
think about whether it's right or wrong. When you, so that's where the word ethical in our name comes in, because I think that, you know, we talk about sustainability. We've been talking about sustainability for like decades now, right? It lost meaning,
Yeah. It's
but
just yes, it's just a word.
exactly. But so something can be sustainable without actually being ethical. In a sense, like, you know, uh, I don't think you truly have to think about the animals as sentient for it to be sustainable. I think it's the right thing to do. But as long as the farmers are making money, the environment is not being harmed. I can't see why, from a pure sustainability lens, that, you know, that doesn't necessarily come in. Now there's a whole movement trying to get sustainable development to include, you know, the like ethical aspects of various things like food production. But yeah, I was just thinking that when you like if you, when they survey people, just like they go out and like make polls, take polls of people's opinions on like should animals have better be treated better. Like people always unanimously agree that, you know, we should, you know, not keep
Right.
chickens in cages for eggs, egg
Right.
production. Will it whether they're willing to pay more for it or not? That's like another question. But at
Right.
least they all agree mostly that, you know, this is like a important thing. So ethically, we all seem to have an idea of what's right and what's wrong and what's good and what's bad. Um, so when it comes to food production, somehow that just gets, you know, lost. I could go on and on.
I think that I mean there's like a lack of transparency in the process, I think. And so we don't always know, you know, we can't see the process. And so we assume and we hope that it's being done ethically until we find out that it's not.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important. And then, you know, of course if it's being done ethically, it's typically more expensive and things are a struggle right now. And so, you know, we sort of have to some of us will make like an exception, like, well, I need to eat, and so we have to make. I'm grateful to learn about this, and so I'm curious. I had asked you this. I told you that I was going to ask you this before we hit record, but like when you when we're talking about farming
Yeah.
fish, my question was, because I am not an ocean person. I don't swim in the ocean. I don't, I don't do anything around the ocean. I was telling Andrew, I have a very healthy respect for the ocean.
Fair
In that
enough.
I don't swim. I'm creeped out by seaweed and stuff touching me, and I'm scared of drowning, and I'm scared of sharks and stuff like that. But like, when you talk about farming fish, are you talking about farming fish for like to keep them safe, or is it mainly for like for eating? And I mean,
Yeah.
of course, you were talking about research as well. But when you're
Yeah.
talking about farming, what is that exactly for?
So I think, and I tried to answer that before as well. So I'm now going back to the textbook a bit, but when you look at the use where fish are used or aquatic animals are used by humans, I can't remember the number, but I'll go through them in order. So there's obviously fisheries, there's obviously aquaculture, which are usually kind of go hand in hand a bit. There is animals in labs. So, like fish are used as experimental models, zebrafish or zebrafish, depending where you're from. Yeah, they're used in lots of medical research. They're a model organism for lots of scientific studies. Yeah. So there's fish in labs, fisheries and aquaculture. There's fish like what they call the ornamental fish trade. I don't like the word ornamental because it's just ridiculous that we're using animals as ornaments.
Right?
Yeah, you know what
Just
ornament. Yeah, yeah,
like fancy fish?
yeah, but the ones that you buy in the pet shop and you have in your house, right?
Oh, okay.
Because
Okay.
they're
For
bred
keeping.
exactly. So a lot of them are wild caught, and then like they kind of breed them and stuff to be suitable for keeping at
Gotcha.
home. But there's all kinds of fish with like so in China, in Asia, parts of Asia, there's fish that they kind of even have like tattoos on them. So that they can be kept in like a tanks and have like cool colors and stuff. So I just feel that that kind of stuff feels a bit like the
Wait, what?
sense.
They're tattooing them so that they have pretty colors?
Yeah,
What?
yeah, like they even like write stuff on them, and yeah, I can just find you some examples. Yeah,
My gosh.
yeah,
That is wild.
it is wild.
Okay. And so that's like just for fun.
Ornaments. Yeah, so that's a whole other
Yeah.
like I don't work at all with ornamental fish. So
Wow.
I call it well, let's call it the aquarium fish trade, let's say, or the aquarium
Okay.
trade. So there's aquarium trade, there's a science aspect, like a research. And there's people who work on all these different aspects, right? And there's fisheries and aquaculture, and then there's like zoo captivity programs, as you call them. So I would say that's probably, I mean, the word farming really refers to food, particularly. Although you could say aquaculture is also the ornamental fish trade, but the captivity part is very little. Like, I mean, yeah, there's zoos that have fish that they have programs for, but it's really easy to, like, breed. Fish breeding is usually fairly simple. As part of their biology is that they. Do you want me to like nerd out, like, kind of? I don't know how
Maybe
that
a
kind of.
little. My
Okay,
eyes might glaze over a little bit, but
no, I'll just mention one part because I mean most
okay.
people again like biology like wasn't everyone's favorite topic, but the way that fish or many let's say fish reproduce is that the females will lay the eggs external to their bodies, and of course the males will go over and spray their seed, and that's how kind of miltless, sorry, and that's how the eggs are fertilized typically. Whether then they're some fish species put the eggs back in their mouth after they're fertilized, others will just like protect them, or they have ways of, but it's all ex vivo, not like they don't have. It's not
Wow.
usually, yeah. So it's not like mammals, right? It's very hands off as well. But my point was just saying that like they in biology class or in like ecology class, you always learn about different reproductive strategies, right? So, elephants take some of the longest. It'll have like one baby or whatever, and it'll take years to actually come out of them, and like it takes years for them to be able to leave the babies alone. A bit like humans in that sense. So mammals are on one end of the spectrum of like reproductive strategies. Now fish are on the other, usually on the other side, where like they'll have thousands of babies in one go. Um, and the
Wow.
idea, and it's like evolutionarily, it relies on the fact that many will die. So they have so many so that some will survive, right?
Well, especially if humans are involved.
Exactly. So I was just saying to you, like, we've exploited that natural ability of fish very well, that they reproduce in high numbers. So for farming or for like having them in the ornamental fish trade, it's quite simple usually to get them to. I say okay, I'm oversimplifying it, but like it's not as hard as like pandas. Notoriously pandas, like they're like the a meme of like asexual. You know what I'm talking about, or not really?
Oh, I did not know that. But
Yeah, like it's
okay.
really hard to get them to breed. I don't think I
Which is
actually
why
know.
they've been so endangered for so long, I
Exactly,
guess. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I'm aware that like people in my field would attack me for oversimplifying. So like I have these. I'm constantly trying to caveat what I'm saying, but I am
Right.
just.
Simplify it for the people that don't understand, but don't dumb it down too much that you're not saying what's. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
really interesting, though. I mean, I did not know any of that.
yeah.
That it's all outside of the body, and very interesting.
Sorry, Amy, do you want me to talk about like because I think your question was about like what aquaculture is and if it's just or what fish farming is and if it's just for food or if it's also like I guess I answered that question, but the
Right.
process is basically like so they have parent mothers, what they call broodstock. They put them in hatcheries and they take the eggs or the fry when they hatch, and those are sold to farmers or the place themselves. We'll put them in ponds or cages or wherever for them to grow, and if like in the nursery stage, and so it goes hatchery, nursery, and then grow out usually. So when they're like big enough to be put into like the big like adult environment, and they grow them out there and they feed them basically. So the biggest part of aquaculture is feeding fish because you're trying to get like fattening, even you could call it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And then of course you have slaughter at the end. There's all kind of other parts that come into that. There's the feeding industry is a big industry. There's the medicines that come into it. There's like water quality equipment and stuff that you use.
Just like everything, they're just like everything else.
Yeah, yeah.
When you
Big
say the word
business.
slaughter when you talk about fish, Wasim, I'm just like, of course, of
Yeah,
course. Like we don't think about that. It's just like, we talk about produce and animals and stuff like that, and we're just like, there's a process, and when you talk about, I've had the conversation with lots of people that there are people that just believe that or just not joking, but like food is not born on a shelf, on a grocery store
yeah,
shelf.
yeah,
There's a whole process. And so, I had a conversation with a woman who said, she had to stop teaching because, or she just was really struggling with being around children that did not understand where their food came from. And I think that's true of a lot of people, that we don't understand that process. And so this is fascinating and so important that
yeah.
that you use the word slaughter when you talk about fish, because I don't know about I don't know much about farming, which is why I'd asked you about that, because all I think of is like people sitting on the edge of a pond and with a fishing hook, and I know that there's also like the netting of fish, but I don't know what the that's why I was asking about farming.
Sorry, actually, I was just thinking about like a podcast I did where, well, it was called Working with Wildlife. An Australian fellow runs it, and we talked about like kind of where food comes from. So I was just remembering what I said to him actually. Sorry, that's where my mind went. Like I was one of those people, so I can't judge them too much at all. I still don't. There's a lot of things I don't know. Like I don't know what. Okay, now I do know what an avocado tree looks like, but there's a lot of trees I just do not know I don't know if something grows underground or overground sometimes, just
Right.
because I didn't study it, but I also didn't grow in a rural area, so a lot of people have made fun of me in my life because I don't know things like they that I should know. Um, like, okay, fine, I know that like potatoes and carrots and all these things are like things that have like roots and shoots and all
Yeah.
this, but
Well, that's why there's all of us, because we can teach each other and we understand more from speaking with each other. I mean, how many people speak as many languages as you? You know?
and people who speak more, yeah. But I will say that and to be fair to people, fish like it's normal for people not to know. Like there's no like at least the other ones, like vegetables. Sorry, I was just trying to think of like what do you call
Land.
like yeah, land food. Well, I wasn't even talking about like protein. I was talking about like just
Yeah.
the stuff that you kind of aquaculture is what I was thinking.
Yep.
In terms of yeah, that one maybe you should know a bit more if you grew up in certain areas. But fish, like when do you even learn things about fish, especially farmed fish? Most people don't even think about the fact that fish are not always wild caught. Actually, more than 50% of if you go into any supermarket, like half of what you're seeing there is not wild caught anymore. It used to be,
Yeah.
of course, but we've replaced it over time with like it's much easier. The food system is the food production system is always trying to guarantee supply, and the best way to do that is by like controlling the whole
Farming.
process. Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't want to go out there and be catching, and it's like variable. You don't know how much you're gonna get every day. Like the people who are buying, like the supermarkets themselves, they want reliable,
Yeah.
stock. Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. I'm
Yeah.
not making any like particular amazing point here. Yeah.
No, I think you are. I think just the fact that, I mean, for myself, like knowing what farmed actually is and that process is really important. And I think that I'm super grateful that you are doing research on this and that you care a lot about this, because this is something that, like I said, so many of us don't know anything about. We just haven't really considered it. And it hasn't been brought to our attention. And so I think this is really important. I know that, there's a big conversation about, wild caught versus farmed
Yeah.
for eating. And I didn't really know, because I don't eat it. I haven't spent a lot of energy
Yeah.
understanding the processes and why one is better than the other, and if one is better than the other. So I'm really grateful to know this process and how that works, and I'm glad that you are doing this, because now I know.
Yeah, no, I think it's an important conversation for sure. I'm always happy to. That's part of why I try to get out there and like sort of share a bit more because education is a big part of the work. I know education feels a bit like kind of on the nose, as they say, like kind of like, but actually it's like I'm learning new stuff all the time. I don't think there's any. Okay, here's an example. So actually, this went a bit viral the other day from another podcast I did, but I was telling the host of the podcast that most farmed salmon have don't hear very well. It's not been like a trait that they need to like. Maybe the wild ones should have better hearing. Like again, it's like
Right.
aquatic hearing, but like the way that they've been bred in captivity or in aquaculture, they end up having like hearing defects. But it doesn't matter because they're only living a couple of years. And sorry, I'm saying it doesn't matter from the industry's perspective. Like
Right.
they're
Right.
not being
Right. Right.
released into the wild.
Yeah. It's easier to catch them if they can't hear you coming.
If they're wild, yeah, but they're just
Yeah.
kept in like this huge. They're just farmed. Like I mean, not just. I mean, they're being farmed, so they're gonna catch them anyway. Like I mean, some
Right.
escape, but very little.
Right.
So okay. Have you heard of this thing of like Franken chickens? No, no. Okay, let me tell you.
I
Sorry.
mean, I think I have, but I don't.
Okay, and
I
no, it's okay. It's better if I explain anyway because for those who don't know, it's always good. Again, even this was new. I learned this a few years ago. I mean, new to me because I don't work with chickens, but an example that the animal welfare community always gives is that of how like factory farming has gone out of control, is that we've now bred chickens. By the way, the chicken production cycle for meat is like 3 weeks. You go from like being a chicken chick to like slaughtered in like 3 weeks, which is very fast. I mean, that's a very,
Oh,
very,
that's in captivity. Okay.
yeah, in
Because
farming.
I know
Yeah.
that we can raise meat chickens and it's like a 6 to 8 week process, but I'm
It
sure
used to
that
be. Used
if
to
they're
be.
being bred specifically for that and by, less ethical people, they're like just
Yeah.
shoving them full of food, get fat,
Yeah.
fat, fat.
So, and it's not just the feeding. In that case, it's also the genetics. So it's selectively breeding the fastest growing breeds of chicken. So there's now there's some strains of chicken which is now becoming outlawed in some places, thankfully. But they grow so fast, Amy, that they actually have to. They
They can't
actually can't
stand.
exactly. So they call them Franken
Okay.
chickens.
I
That's what.
didn't, I guess I didn't, I've
Yeah,
heard the term, but I didn't know it was
yeah,
necessarily for that.
yeah.
Okay. And so I did have a question that came up when you were talking about this with like salmon and the hearing. I did not do well in biology. I apologize,
Don't worry at all.
but like how many like generations? Because I know, like for evolution to change or the growing process so that, if salmon in the wild can hear fine, and then if in captivity, like how many generations of salmon am I making sense? Like how many generations before that change happens? Or like, the chickens that you were talking about,
Yeah,
the 3 weeks,
yeah.
like how many
So
generations does it take to
So
change the,
those numbers are like very well known. Salmon have only been farmed like properly for like what 30, 40 years and properly like in a commercial way, maybe a bit more than that, 50 years. That can't be that much, surely. Actually, the explosion in salmon farming, ironically, people don't know this, but it happened when like sushi, for example, it didn't used to have salmon in it at all. Like the
oh,
Japanese
interesting.
don't didn't eat salmon at all, and I think they do have some species there naturally, the wild salmon, but most of the sushi for them was like other like wild caught white fish mostly. And I guess tuna would have been part of it, but tuna wasn't like tuna used to be scarcely eaten because it's expensive and stuff. But anyway, so um, when the Norwegians, who were the ones like pioneering salmon farming, either the Japanese went to Norway or no, the Norwegians went to Japan. I can't remember which way. I think the Norwegians went to Japan for some reason, and they tried sushi, and they're like, "Oh, this is amazing. We should put salmon on this." So it was like an idea that came from Norway actually, as opposed to from Japan, and it kind
Oh,
of
interesting.
like and as a result, that made a trend globally because salmon is the most popular sushi fish.
Oh,
I
it
think
is.
it is definitely, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Wow.
like the one that people order the most. I think most rolls have like the most popular rolls have some kind of salmon in them. So that's what made a huge demand for salmon globally. A bit like avocado, you know how like the Australian they call it avo on toast or whatever, like that like for brunch that made avocado demand for avocado so popular amongst many in the global north, and as a result, like now, like there's like water issues in
Yeah.
California, and I'm not an expert at all in that. I'm just saying like things I'm aware of.
Yeah. But this is something that I am aware of because I just
Oh,
don't eat fish. So
okay,
but those things I have actually heard of.
fair enough. Yeah, so you know more about that than me. So if I'm saying it
Probably
wrong,
not.
you
No, I think, that with the, we're so health conscious that, we found that avocados are a very healthy fat. And so
yeah,
avocado toast is a very easy way to get that. And also,
yeah,
with almonds, I
yeah,
think almonds
yeah.
and,
That my brain was
and
going there. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, they require a lot of water. And so that's
Yeah.
become a struggle. Yeah.
So here's a fun one for you, Amy.
Okay.
Like I don't know too much about it, but like I should know more because I get asked a lot about it. So like omega threes, or like just we know that they're even even then the jury's still out about how important it is for our health. But traditionally, many people eat fish or seafood because of the omegas that they think they need. It's true you can now get them from other sources. Actually, the fish get their omegas from the algae that they eat anyway, so we could just eat the algae, yeah? So that is a lot of where the omega production is going now because the fisheries for omegas are problematic in many cases.
Is that
But
true?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The fish
Oh yeah,
get
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
omegas from eating
Yeah.
algae, and so we could just like skip that whole
Yeah, I mean it's probably not as efficient, right? You have to eat a lot of algae, but the industry is very good at like commercializing stuff. So they're just taking crap loads of well, sorry. When I say algae, I mean like yeah, the floating. It's not like seaweed. It's like the
Okay.
microalgae, right? So they're taking a huge quantities of that they've just produced. It's like in bioreactors they produce. I guess you can say farming them. So they've like produced algae in large quantities, and they condense that and take the omegas that you need out of it. Yeah. It's a bit more
Interesting.
expensive than fish, to be fair. Yeah, because it's a quite an intensive process. But even that is becoming cheaper and more efficient, and so on. I mean, fish have to get the nutrition from somewhere, right? They don't just like
Yeah.
generate it themselves.
Oh, that's really interesting. I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah.
Um,
But I was just
because
saying to you, go ahead. Sorry, yeah,
yeah.
go ahead. No.
Oh no, just like I take a fish oil supplement because
Yeah.
I don't eat fish. But, because I'm literally taking basically an algae supplement because I mean, I was thinking it would be easier just to take an algae supplement, but it's actually not because it's really hard to you were saying like capture and or
Yeah.
like that process is complicated.
Yeah. So I think, no, I think this is one of the things that vegans like complain about that like the industry's made it so much easier to go for meat options.
Hmm.
So like it's harder to go vegan even though it shouldn't be. Uh, like so I mean say for protein it's much easier to get your protein from meat than it is from other
Right.
non-meat because it's just more available everywhere like in the shops and stuff and
Right.
in the restaurants like if you want to go for a vegan option there's so little
Yeah.
to choose
You're
from.
asking
Sorry,
people to work harder.
exactly. So I was thinking in your case, or like in the case of like, and I get asked this question a lot. That's where I was going with this. That like
Okay.
fish oil supplements, the non-fish alternatives, you can't even find them in your average. You have to like go looking for them. Like the
Yeah.
standard omega supplement is gonna be fish. That
Hmm.
I'm talking about the alternative one. Oh, I don't want to like harm any fish, so I go for this.
Right.
But yeah, so it's not even that easy to find it. So if you didn't know that, I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I also have a flaxseed, so you can use flaxseed
True, true,
in
true,
that
true,
instance,
true.
but I don't know if it's necessarily vegan because of
You
the
have to eat
stuff that's
it
in it.
is yeah, but you have to eat a lot of flaxseed to get the same quantity, no? Yeah.
Oh,
I
I
mean,
don't know.
unless you're taking supplements,
Yeah,
flaxseed,
no, it's
yeah.
definitely a supplement.
Oh, right. I thought you were eating like
No,
okay, because you can like some people
I'm trying
do.
to. I'm adding it in more, but
It's
like the
just
supplement
hard.
is, there's fish or there's flaxseed, and so I think I sort of like interchange them, or I think I'm trying to go with more flax than fish, just because.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But anyway, there's like different omegas, right? There's like three,
Yeah.
6, 9. So some of them I think you can only get from certain sources.
Uh,
Anyway, I'm definitely not an expert. I should be a lot more like informed on nutrition because I find it interesting. But like getting into this whole like, can you still get this without eating
right.
animals and all this? Like
Right. Yeah.
apart from I think vitamin B12 is like the only one that there's like no way you can get from plants.
Animals.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
really?
that's the one that all vegans have to supplement, isn't it?
B12?
Yeah. Vegans are like
Oh, I don't know.
true vegans, pure vegans are always deficient in vitamin B12.
I think that a lot of people are probably deficient, unless they eat a lot of meat. I don't know. I'm not sure what the answer. That's something that I'm actually aware of. I'm deficient in B12,
Fair enough. Yeah.
but I think I might also just have a weird body.
But then supplementing that one is pretty straightforward anyway, right?
I Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's affected anything taking the supplement.
Oh, really? You don't feel different?
No. But I mean, B12 is it's like a vitality thing, right? Like it makes
Yeah.
you feel it's a
Yeah.
I should be more
Vital.
informed on nutrition as well. Anyway,
Yeah.
Well, that's really interesting. Let's talk more about ethical seafood research, please. Like, so you're just, I mean, I don't want to say just, but like, how are you researching this?
So I think what sets us apart from like some of the other charities or nonprofits in the space that work on the same issue of like, let's say, fish welfare is that you can work with consumers, for example, trying to educate consumers on, making better choices. You can work with certifiers who are putting their labels on products to kind of have them have like better standards. You can work with governments. Sorry, I haven't got to what we do yet. I'm just saying the
Yeah.
different things you could do. So you can work on like law and policy to try to, get more ambitious laws that protect animals more so that the industry has to make changes. Or you can work with the industry directly. And I think, based on what I studied and sort of the work I did in the past and all that, it made sense for me personally to work with producers. Given that, like I said, I'm from Egypt originally, and for a lot of my research, I was based in developing countries. Actually, most food production happens in the global south anyway, right? So there's pretty much not a single food type that I can think of, and I'm exaggerating, but like everything you can think of, China is a big player in it, right? So one of the projects I work on, by the way, is caviar. I've been doing some caviar work because most people don't really know much about where caviar comes from, or so it used to be wild caught Russian, delicacy. Now it's majority farmed Chinese caviar that is on the market. Like more than 50% of global caviar production comes from China, and that's why the price of caviar has come down dramatically. It used to be something that only like very rich people could
Right.
afford. Yeah, but anyway, sorry, I'm not talking about caviar. My mind just went there. I was thinking of like food production and how most of it is carried out in like developing countries or low middle income countries, global south, whatever term you want to use. And most of it is actually small scale farmers. If you look at numbers, I mean, if you add all the small scale farmers, that's making up the majority of production. It's not like the big players.
Oh, interesting.
Actually, they're minority. Yeah, there's only a few cases where like like Kenya, for example, is one uh, fish farming entity that like makes up
Wow.
like 60% of production, but that's very unusual. In the majority of the cases, you'll see like the small scale sector is 70% of production. It's just thousands of farmers versus like a handful that are producing large numbers. Yeah.
Well,
Sorry,
on that.
thousands producing small numbers versus a handful producing large amounts. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, so as you were talking about that, I was just like, well, so is that better that it's small farmers because that makes your job harder. You've got that many producers to educate
Yeah.
and work with, but at the same time, like I know, like in the U.S. we have just a very few producers. Well, we've got like the overhead companies that are pushing producers, smaller producers, to like pump out more food, and that's just it. Then they have to cut corners and stuff like that. So is the bigger company, like you were saying in Kenya, there's like one farming production.
Yeah.
Is that better? Are they more ethical, or is it the whole like monopoly thing? The one producer versus smaller producers.
So sorry, the first answer to your the answer to
Yeah,
the
that was like
first
eight
part of your
questions.
question. No, because I only caught the first part actually. But the first part, I was just gonna say that yes, we talk about scalability a lot in our work, like how to scale up. So we're looking for solutions or interventions that are going to be something we can scale up, so that you can, let's say, if you have a technology that's going to improve fish welfare, you want it to be simple and cheap so that many farmers can adopt it. Because if it's just going to benefit a handful, that's not really making change. You want to make change at scale, basically. So yes, we do think about that a lot, and a lot of the work we do involves, low cost, accessible solutions.
Hmm. Right.
So yeah, I guess all of this was just to answer your question, like what does ESR, Ethical Seafood Research, do? We work with uh, producers, farmers in global South countries where actually most production is taking place.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a coincidence that that's what we're doing, and we're trying to work with the smaller scale ones that are make up the majority of production. It's a different approach. You could take both approaches, but we also do have some policy work. By the way, we do a lot of education and training, and we have a legal initiative in Spain. Actually, here I'm just taking on a new project this year. So I don't want to like say we just do one thing because that would be, selling our work short a bit or not doing justice to
Absolutely.
our work.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just that we kind of like you have to come up with a mission and a vision and a sort of a theory of change and so on. And global South countries has been a big part of the work we've done for the last few years, but it's by far not the only thing we do at all. Um, I think I kind of digressed then into like, what's the best strategy? And these are questions that I grapple with a lot, like how can we have impact in our work?
Well, that's
Yeah,
everyone should be thinking about that, right?
I
How
guess. I
can
mean,
we
I'm the
best how
founder,
can we have the
right?
best
So
impact? Yes.
true.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit too close to it. Like sometimes I wish I could just work for someone else and get them to like think about all the hard questions. But then that's also where the exciting part is, like
Yeah. I mean, I'm
um,
sure like I do better with somebody to bounce ideas off of, but at the same time like you want to make sure that if you have someone like that, they're going to be very much in line and not just like someone to bounce ideas off of. Um, but I
yeah. I
think
mean,
that go right ahead.
no, no. I was gonna say I'm not. I don't think fortunately, I'm not alone too much in like decision making. Like I have people on my team that I can like consult with or think with. I have coaches as well and mentors and advisor. We have an advisory board that I go to for certain things. So I don't think like I mean that part is a bit lonely, but I meant like it's the hard part. It's not just because it's lonely, but also because you're responsible for setting strategy, right? So like
Gotcha.
should we be working with large producers or should we be working with small scale? And I can usually justify it. Sorry, a good leader is not just about taking the right decision; it's about communicating it to your team, and then they all be on the same page. And like this is why we're doing that. So
Right.
when I find my team don't know why we do certain things, I'm like, oh, okay, this is a learning for me that I need to do more of this
Got
thing.
it. Yeah. Okay. Well, and I mean, this is a relatively new business. I mean,
Yeah,
2021, right?
yeah.
So I mean, there's hey,
Incorporated in 20, yeah, so we were only incorporated then, but really well, I wasn't doing anything for ESR until 2022, 2023. That's when I really started to like actually get grants and like do relevant work. I worked for other people for much of those first few years, so it was just like a registered entity without actually being in its current form. Sorry, I cut you off, Amy. Yeah, to
no.
clarify, that's even less years, that's all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I mean, their growth isn't it's not supposed to be explosive, like so you can only do as much as you can right now, but there's still time and it's still necessary. So we might not be able to save every single fish, but it's getting better every day, and
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to do everything all at once. You have to grow into that and grow your team and stuff like that. But I'm glad that you're doing this. Goodness, I've learned so much. I think this is, I mean, it's fascinating and it's heartbreaking and it's exciting that there's work being done. And I think that, I mean, one of the things that you had said, um, either on your website or in your guest form was, you're bridging you're bridging between conservation and industry, which I think is so necessary because industry is just like pump it out fast, and there's definitely a need for conservation and just ethics,
Yeah. I
as
mean,
in every animal, every being at this point.
yeah. No, I was just gonna say that I like. to think that we're shifting the narrative, you know? So, like I said in the beginning about like resources, you know, this is in the country. So, one of the things I say a lot in the presentations I give is when I first started working on fish welfare in Egypt, I couldn't even find a word for like in Arabic for welfare. Like my team told me, "Oh, don't use the literal one because it's not going to land well. It just sounds like it's a concept that human welfare doesn't exist. Like yes, the
Right.
concept exists on paper, but most people living in that society feel like they are in poor welfare. So if I go there and start telling them, "Hey, we should give fish better lives," you know, they just like this guy's, you know, on crack or whatever. Like get out of here, right?
Right.
So we have to be careful of the kind
They're
of words,
fish. What are they,
right? Well,
Yeah.
especially when you're talking about a place where human welfare is a huge, like
Yeah.
first, like make sure the humans are like we're talking like basic standards of living, you know. So I won't tell a farmer, you know, you need to like make sure that your fish have their mental state is good, even though that is a part of animal welfare, of course, and
Absolutely.
now more and more a part of fish welfare. We'll talk about like practical things, you know, like water quality is affecting their welfare, but in a way that also affects their health and production, and you're tying it into why it matters to them always, right? Like
Yeah.
with a salmon farmer, we could talk about in the global north, we could talk about things because they have the profit margins to play around with, you know.
Hmm.
We could say like, you know, is it ethical to keep fish in this way because they're, you know, sentient beings? So I'm just saying to you, like the terms and the narratives are very important, and we're taking baby steps in that sense because um, we're starting from a very, you know, basic starting point, let's say.
Yeah.
So I see a big part of our work is shifting the narrative around food production and aquatic food production, especially. So
Right. That's so important. I mean, we've been talking about it for, land animals for a long time. And so I think it's definitely time to start thinking about fish, goodness, and water animals, aquatic
exactly,
animals. That's the
yeah.
word. Yeah, that's the one. This. Thank you so much, Waseem. Oh my goodness. What I know that you have another meeting, but so what does the word sustainability mean to you?
Oh man, that's the worst. That's the worst one to ask me, just because I like sort of shy away from it. I mean, that's why I was saying to you about like the
Yes.
word ethical and why I went for that in
Yep.
the title because I feel like I can maybe explain ethical a bit more than sustainable. Sustainable just becomes something that's just so overused. But you know, obviously, the core of sustainability has to be something that can be maintained in the long term. Either so, like if it's an economic activity that you know the economic, social, and environmental components are all in tandem in a way that can be continued in perpetuity. But for our line of work, we think of what we call social proof or social license. No, social proof, social license, not proof. Do you have the social license to carry out the activity that you're doing? And it can't be truly sustainable if you don't have that. And that means like willingness to people's willingness to like have fish farms in their backyards or like in areas where they live, or willing to accept that fish are kept at certain densities and so on. So that's the social license part. Yeah, sorry, I was just thinking about sustainability and trying to bring in our work into it, but it has to be something that aligns with people, like people's common decency too. Let's say
Yes.
to be truly
Okay.
sustainable. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I agree with you that it has become a buzzword and it's just, it's kind of overused. But I think that there's also like if we kind of bring it home to like, if I was not thinking about it as an overused word, like what does it actually mean to me? And so I appreciate that. And I've never heard the phrase social license. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
And then
they talk about it in our field. They say this the social license to operate. But go ahead, yeah.
no, my last question was just, how can we find ethical seafood research and Wasim Imam to learn more?
Yeah, so I would say we're quite loud. We're active on most platforms. and I try to do this kind of thing as well to get the message out there more. We're very active on LinkedIn. We're pretty active, well, equally active on Instagram. Just type in our name, you'll find us. I'm not as active in my personal capacity, but of course I inform the creative direction of our social media indirectly. We're trying to grow our YouTube. We have a newsletter that goes out every month. I can send you the link for that if you sometimes put things below in the chat and so on. I can
for sure.
share that with you. We have also, well, obviously we're a nonprofit, so anyone who chooses to support us, we're very grateful, and that's on our website too. And we have like an activity book for kids that the money from that goes to our cause as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh gosh, that's great.
And all of our merchandise, like what I'm wearing. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I noticed.
Because we have a shop with our merch on the website, and that money goes to good causes too. Go ahead, sorry.
Great. No, I'm going to have all these links in the show notes. So you don't have to remember, you guys. Just go to the show notes and you'll find all the links to get ethical seafood research or Wasseem. And I think the shirt is great.
Thank you.
I was like, man, first thing in the morning, you're on it with your branding. That's great.
I care a lot about the cause. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I think that's wonderful. I mean, I wouldn't want that any other way. I mean, I love that you're a small thing right now so that you can really amplify your passion for the aquatic life.
Yeah. Trying.
That's really important.
Trying my hardest.
Yeah. Well, I think you're doing great, and I so appreciate your time, and I appreciate I appreciate what you're doing. I think that it's so, like I said, I had not really thought about it, but I'm so grateful that you're doing it.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, and I'm happy to share, and thank you again for the opportunity. It's been great to talk a bit more about what we do and educate new audiences, let's say.
Yes. Oh, for sure. At least one. Awesome. Thank you, Wasseem.
Thank you.